Big news in Bears land today. There was a trade made. Me and my guest Jim Miller, we're going to talk about what that means for the Chicago Bears and the rest of the league. Welcome to Chicago Sports Podcast, and we're on in 3, 2, 1, go.
Let's go. Yo. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
Hey, yo, what's good, everybody? It's D Nice here from the Chicago Sports Podcast. I'm here with my guest Jim Miller. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing great, D Nice. Good to be with you, man.
Likewise, brother. Hey, today we're going to talk about the big trade that happened today. Well, a lot of people don't deem it as big, but I think, with the depth, with the shortness of depth that we have on the defensive line, I think this trade has an opportunity to reap some huge benefits. Um, they want to get on the guy because it's all about a name at the end of the day with some people, but substance sometimes overrules the big name, and hopefully that's the case with this move that we made today with signing Mr. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. I hope I said that correctly. I had it earlier. I practiced for a while, but I hope I did him some justice.
Yeah.
So, Jim, how do you feel about it? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think when it's out of necessity. Obviously, with what happened with Dayo going to IR because he's got the torn Achilles, and then of course with Robinson going down as well. Booker just got back, Austin Booker. So the Bears are short a defensive end. When you look at Joe Tryon, he's a former first round pick, 32nd overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he really, he's known as a versatile player because he's about 6'5", 260 pounds. And so you look at Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles runs a 3-4 style of defense in Tampa, and they wanted to use his athleticism, but it never really materialized for him. So ultimately, they ship him off to the Cleveland Browns, where he's been all season long, and he's in a wide nine of Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns. And typically that's, you want lighter defense. Think of Brandon Graham of Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and his wide nine technique that he ran
Hmm.
even when Jim Schwartz was the D coordinator there. And Brandon Graham can survive in a wide nine as a lighter defensive end. And that's what Joe Tryon was trying to do, to use his athleticism, to use his speed. It never really worked. He's been more on special teams. He only played 6% of the snaps there in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Now, when I look at the fit for the Bears, I really don't see a fit, because if you look at Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator of the Bears, he typically likes his defensive ends like Montez Sweat, bigger, 280-pound guys, 275, that type of thing. Not that Joe Tryon can't do it, because he's out of necessity, and they needed an extra pass rusher. But where I think the Bears missed the boat is a week ago, New England traded Keon White to San Francisco. If you look at Keon White, he fits that bill. He's 6'5". He's 280 pounds, 285. He's a bigger guy, and of course, San Francisco had a necessity with the guys like Nick Bosa going down.
Hmm.
And Seattle and San Francisco was able to strike that deal. I think it was only a seventh rounder. And Keon White, to me, his best football's ahead of him. Not that Joe Tryon, it's his best football's not ahead of him. It just, the light bulb really hasn't gone off yet, and he really hasn't found a scheme that has fit him. But the Bears are in need of a pass rusher. We see how the defense struggled mightily against Cincinnati, and
Woo.
they got an extra body in there to help them. D Nice, I can't sit here and say he's the dominator because he's not. He hasn't done that yet, but he is a good athlete.
This is true, and I have two questions. No, the first question is what is Ryan Poles trying to say about this year's football team that he is not ready to make that move to kind of get us over the proverbial hump, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term.
Well, I mean, I, I don't know because they're right in the mix. With Minnesota going in and beating Detroit at home, Minnesota's now 4-4. Detroit now falls backward, and Green Bay just stubbed their toe against Carolina. So the Bears are in this. Yeah, the Bears are in this mix here. And all their division games are here towards the latter part of the second half of the season, and you'd like to think, but again, it's compensation, it's
Hmm.
who's available. Can you
Yeah.
fit them in your salary cap? And they were able to do that with Joe Tryon. But I've been saying it here this whole offseason that if the Bears offense performs like it did against Cincinnati, where they're scoring high
Hmm.
20s, 30 points, which is
Hmm.
what they should, and they should be able to do that.
Yep.
The Bears need to be an offensive generated team. They have a lot of moves that they need on defense, and there's just too many. I think they're a D tackle short. I think they're another dominating defensive end short. I think there's two corners short. With
Yeah.
Jalen Johnson going on IR, realistically, I could have seen them try to trade for a couple of corners, which I think they're in need of right now. But the Bears offense really has to carry this through, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now my next question, because I want to piggyback off of what you just said. Now my next question is, and I think I speak for a lot of the fans of the Bears when I say this. Is he trying to outsmart the rest of the league by going with these low caliber players, these highly potential players, you know what I mean? With the by taking these low risks, expecting high rewards.
Yeah. Well, Joe Tryon did have a high grade when he came out of University of
He
Washington. He
absolutely
was,
did.
yeah, he was a first round pick, but it's just the light bulb hasn't gone off yet. And maybe a change of scenery and what Dennis Allen is going to do is, maybe it goes off for him. But I'm not expecting that to happen. It's a complicated defense to learn, and I think the Bears are going to have to. The majority of the guys, the guy that I think is going to have to step up to me is going to be Austin Booker. He's
Yes,
shown flashes. He actually had a good play in the Cincinnati game. He forced
he
that
did.
forced fumble, and he's got to. They need somebody to step up. Let's be honest. If you're playing opposite Montez Sweat, you got to get 8 sacks. You don't have to
Yeah,
be a double digit guy, but you know, Dio to me, he was just a guy, and I thought they overpaid for him. His biggest average is about 4 sacks a year.
yeah.
Even in Indy, and even last year he came off a 3 sack performance, and he really wasn't really doing anything for the Bears. So somebody's got to emerge, and Joe Tryon will have that opportunity. But you'd like to think that guys that have been here, like Robinson, if he gets back healthy, or
Hmm.
Austin Booker being a year more mature now, and that he's been in this system since training camp and OTAs, that one of these guys will step up and play. Tryon is just to me going to be a rotational type of guy. That's really where he's going to fit, in my opinion, because he's new to the defense and it's a
Hmm.
complicated system that has a lot of calls.
Yeah, and I can see that as well. And you mentioned how complicated this defense is, and it can be much more complicated when you don't necessarily fit it from a physical standpoint, which is
Yeah.
where we at with Mr. Tryon. Uh, now could it listen? We're just here talking football. I consider you an expert in this situation because you've been on the field with these guys as far as being in the National Football League. But this could be a thing where the light bulb can come on and hey, all is well. But the chances of that are very slim. I want to go back to something you said about the Chicago Bears offense. Now you said because I agree with you, this Chicago Bears offense should be able to put pressure on other teams by scoring a lot of points, meaning
Yeah.
scoring over 30 points a game. Similar to what Peyton Manning had done in his run with the Indianapolis Colts, because if you could play the game even with those Colts teams, you had a chance to beat them. But if they got out too far in front, those guys on the edges really took
Yeah.
over football games. And I think this has to be a situation here in Chicago where this offense kind of has to be our defense as well with the way we score the ball and just force teams to be one dimensional.
Yeah. Well, you're right, because to me it's not a monsters of the midway defense. They're not a
Right.
dominating defense. I think Dennis Allen has been masterful and opportunistic at the way they've been able to generate those turnovers like on a 4-week span. And even
Hmm.
last week they generated, like with Booker making that big forced fumble. To me that's opportunistic. Their roster is not strong enough defensively, and I just think in the NFC North that last year was the highest point scoring division in the league. The Bears got to start matching the teams point for point. And it's been about Caleb, his development in this new system, and it's starting to take root. I thought he played extremely well versus Cincinnati. And if he plays like that moving out, the rest of the way, in these crucial games that are divisional games and they can get in the high 20s, I think
Hmm.
they got a chance. They got a chance at being, if not winning the division or potentially being a wild card for them. But they've got to be an offensive generated team. And when have we ever said that about the Chicago Bears? It's always been defense, defense, defense. But I really think it's on Caleb and the offense to really complement their defense that is not strong enough where they dominate time of possession. They, have these long drives that are sustainable where they can come away with points and it takes pressure off their defense. And I was encouraged in what I saw by Caleb. They've done it a couple times this year against Dallas, and we saw it this weekend against Cincinnati, where that's where they need to be offensively, in my opinion.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you 100%. And I think, as most fans, I think, we're frustrated when we see that teams like the Eagles, they just coming off a Super Bowl, but
Yeah.
they're not resting on their laurels, man. You see they signed Jalen, they make a trade for Jalen Phillips. They get what's the young man from former Green
Well,
Bay
they got the
Packers,
corner. They got
Jair
Michael.
Alexander.
Yeah, and they
You
got
know,
Michael Carter too. Is what they did.
Absolutely. Like
Yeah,
these are the things that we're seeing, and we're just scratching our head, wondering like, what in the heck is Ryan Poles doing up there? You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Well, Howie Roseman, the general manager of Philly, has always been very aggressive, and here, like you said, they're in they're the world champs, and they make 3 trades before the trade deadline. They knew Zadarius Smith, who retired. Brandon
Hmm.
Graham comes out of retirement. Supposedly they were talking to him. Howie was talking to him like 3 weeks ago. Like, hey, dude, be ready. We're gonna call you. We want to bring you back because they knew they needed another body as an edge rusher,
Yeah,
and that was the number one defense a season ago. And Howie Roseman does not wait, and
not
he
at all.
strikes hot, and he's always looking for deals. And I thought they were masterful in what they did. Now, does Poles have those relationships around the NFL to consummate those deals? Probably not yet. He's still a pretty young GM. He
Yeah,
did re up with the Bears, but like I said, I wish they would have potentially talked to New England and gotten Keon White. To me, he would have been the better fit over Joe Tryon.
yeah, I agree with you. Keon White is very good, and like you said, physically he fits what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, and with all what the Bears didn't do, where do we go from here now, Jim?
Well, I just think they got to continue to grow as a team. They got to continue to be more consistent on offense. I thought this weekend they really they negated a lot of the foolish penalties on offense. They really, took care of business and what they needed to do to
Hmm.
score points. I think Caleb was much more structured in the pocket, and I think what Ben Johnson is demanding of this offense is starting to take root. I think defensively they're outmanned, even with the adding Joe Tryon. I think is,
Yeah.
I think Dennis Allen is going to have to be very masterful in his disguises, which he has been.
Hmm.
He's created a lot of looks defensively. Uh, he's maximized the talent that is there. I think they've overperformed in terms of the generating, you know, turnovers and things that they have, but the pass rush is still not there. I don't think they're good enough up front, and now they're down a couple guys in the secondary just due to injuries. So it's got to be the Bears offense, you know, continuing to grow and get better and be more consistent, scoring points and time of possession, and continuing to run the football to protect a defense that has been opportunistic up to this point.
True, true. Now you mentioned the word disguises, and
Yeah,
being a former quarterback, I want to know how you feel about a lot of the trickeration that's going on with this offense just
yeah,
to get in the end zone. Now I know for me, and you people call me a traditionalist, old school. Like I just think if we have to rely on trickeration just to score points, I just think it's a recipe for disaster. I'm not a
yeah.
fan. But I'm going to I want to know how you feel about the trickeration as a former quarterback. To have to go through these things and doing these trick plays just to get in the end zone. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think early in the season the Bears couldn't do it. They had completely shot themselves in the foot on first and second down where they didn't stay on schedule. And I think now, like the trickeration that you saw in Cincinnati was by design. I mean, it's a very bad defense that's not sound, and guys can play out of position. Cincinnati going into the weekend had missed more tackles than any defense in the National Football League, 94 to be exact. In case in point, look at the touchdown that Loveland
Mm-hmm.
scored on. That battle, the safety had a direct shot on him and completely missed the tackle. I
Didn't
mean,
wrap up.
so yeah, so they don't execute very well. So I think the Bears ran their staple of offense, and Kyle Monangai was great. Like when they wanted to run their bread and butter runs, I
Mm-hmm.
thought Kyle did a great job executing that. And now they're starting to expand. They're
Yeah.
starting to expand. They're doing more. They're able to mix in trick plays to take advantage of defenses that over pursue and aren't very good and aren't very disciplined, like Dallas and like Cincinnati, where Ben Johnson was able to sprinkle that in. And what I will say too, D Nice, is think about the fourth downs. Think about all the fourth down
Yeah.
conversions that Ben Johnson has called this year. This weekend versus Cincinnati is the first time where I think the offense was prepared. Like they knew
Mm-hmm.
that. I think the coach threw him off guard. He probably told him early in the season, "Hey, we need to go for it on fourth downs. We're not a very good defensive team." And those guys, they kind of chuckle. I don't want to say they chuckled or didn't take them serious enough. And then those opportunities came, and they shot
Hmm.
themselves in the foot every
Yes,
single
sir.
time and
Yes,
didn't
indeed.
convert them. They looked prepared against Cincinnati. They knew, hey man, coach is calling these fourth downs, and we got to
Yeah.
convert them, and they did. And so I think that's another sign that they're growing for as an offense. Guys are maturing. They're feeling more comfortable, and they know this coach is going to be aggressive offensively, and they were prepared this weekend.
Yeah, we saw guys mauling up front, man. We saw
Yeah,
Darnell Wright. I think he took another step this weekend. We saw those guys up front really roll great. And I love to see the um the left tackle getting out there and pulling and
yeah,
getting out there in front. Oh man, that was a sight to see. And then also seeing him kind of roll grade the guy over to the sideline.
yeah,
Yeah, that was awesome to see. That's the kind of nastiness we need on this football team.
yeah,
And if this weekend, I know we play Cincinnati, and I know all the bad things we could talk and say about Cincinnati, but I think if the Bears do not feel like they found their identity this weekend, then we'll never have one.
yeah,
I just hope we can lean on into that and grow in and grow it a little bit further than what we did versus Cincinnati, so it can carry us throughout the rest of the year. The running game is our identity. Everyone loves Caleb. He throws a pretty ball. The jump passes. What I'm saying. The deep ball is always exciting, but it has to start with the running game, in my opinion. What say you?
Yeah, I think Kyle Monangai did nothing but potentially earn himself more carries. You know, he ran tough. He always falls forward. He's a bowling ball out there. He runs angry. I love that,
Mhm.
and he's kind of beating up the defense when he does it. And I think it does. It wears down the opponent, and it logs that time of possession, which is what the Bears want. That'll help protect their defense right now. And, I think, like you said, they're finding an identity. They knew Ben Johnson wanted to run the football. And I think we can probably, though there was a 4 week stretch where I thought DeAndre Swift was really playing well, but now they've got a good complement. Because to me, I've always viewed DeAndre Swift as more of a player in space. Not that he can't run between the tackles and do cutbacks, but Manungai, I think you saw the physicality and
Mhm.
how he runs with power. He runs angry. He's getting positive yards. Guys, he's tough to tackle. It took more than one tackler to bring him down. And again, he'll wear you out. And I think that's kind of the formula Ben Johnson had in Detroit with Montgomery. Yeah, I'm sure Bears fans remember Montgomery because that's how I viewed him. And he's been wonderful for Detroit. And now I think Chicago has found their kind of another David Montgomery the second, and that's Kyle Monangai. And he really played well. He has earned himself every opportunity he's had on the field. I think has been a positive for him, and I think he's earned the right to get more carries where they really could have a 1-2 punch that you're looking for. A guy in space that's a slasher, can get big yardage and big plays, and a guy who can pound you and wear you out and get the tough yardage because Roshan, obviously, we know he's been MIA, man. That guy's really has
Yeah.
been hurt since he
Yeah.
arrived in Chicago.
Yeah, and speaking of Monungai, man, I was praying and cheering so hard. I was hoping the young man had an opportunity to get into that end zone this
Yeah,
weekend with him having such a great game and just being a bell cow for this offense with those 25 carries. But another guy that I was hoping that he got some field time was Brent Brown.
yeah,
Brent Brown showed in the preseason that he can protect, and protect the quarterback and with pass protection. And he's a very good back in my opinion. I just wonder, like like you said, the thing with Roshan and this Travis Homer situation, it just baffles me. I don't get it, and I guess I have to be in there to understand it. But these are guys like for Brent Brown to come in and be a third back, that'll be, what I'm saying, another major key to this offense, being that, they can lean on, what I'm saying, the running
yeah,
game as an identity. So I just hope we continue to, what I'm saying, progress this
yeah,
running game so it can open up things for the pass. Speaking of the passing game, Rome Odunze, his pops had some interesting things to say after the game. I don't know. I don't understand, what I'm saying, where he's coming from with it. But I think, Rome has to do some soul searching. And I also believe that it's a little bit, Caleb may have lost a little bit of confidence in him as well, with all the drops.
yeah.
Now as a former quarterback, I'm gonna keep saying this because, you know, this is kind of like your wheelhouse. How does that relationship go when you have a guy struggling like Rome and you as the QB when when you're in the heat of it and it's time to count on the guy, you know, do you still throw it to him regardless if your confidence is shaking or not when it comes to him?
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, you're going to make a bad ball that
Hmm.
your receivers are going to make a great catch, and they're going to drop a couple too. That you expect that's a perfectly thrown ball, and it just happens. Sometimes you're going to drop them, but and it happens. It's unfortunate. What bugged me not this week, but the previous week is Caleb kept on saying, "Well, I'm not on the same page as my receivers. I'm not on the same
Yeah.
page as he was going through on certain plays that he wasn't on the same page where they weren't making plays when they needed to make plays." To me, Caleb's to the point now where he's got to get the receivers on his page,
Yeah.
whatever he's seeing. So whatever issues he's having with Rome, where they're not on the same page, or maybe Rome's depth is too deep, or maybe he cuts a route short, or whatever, that's where Caleb's got to grow as a quarterback and say, hey, versus this coverage, this is what I'm expecting you to do, and get Rome on your page, and then Rome will have the confidence that he needs knowing that, all right, hey, I'm seeing this coverage that we discussed, and I know how this route in the quarterback and I've discussed how he wants it run and how we're going to attack this coverage, and I think it'll gain confidence in both of them. And then if he executes it the way Caleb is thinking or wants it to be executed, that's where you grow as a relationship, and that you're on the same page and you see things the same way. And the next time it happens, it's unspoken words where
Yeah,
nothing's got to be brought up again, and it becomes rote memory, and you're just confident both as a receiver and a quarterback that, oh yeah, here we go, I know how this is going to work this time out. This is what we've discussed. This is exactly what was presented, and we know what we're going to do and how we're going to attack it. And you both should play with confidence,
yeah.
knowing what the outcome's going to be. And, they'll get to that point, and maybe Caleb and Rome probably still need to work on those things. And I
Mhm.
put it on Caleb to get your receivers on your page. And then there'll be, you know, there's no doubt because you've just removed all doubt, is how I look at it.
Yeah, and we understand what Rome is. He came into this season at such a hot start,
Yeah.
so I think this is something that can be duplicated, but like you said, it's up to Caleb being the captain of this offense, to get to get everybody back on track. He's the point guard of this thing,
Yep.
and he has to get everyone back on track. And with that being said, I expect, you know, Caleb and even Ben Johnson to scheme up some things to get Rome involved in the game early on Sunday. Just some short passes just to let him feel the rock for a little bit, to get him started early. And then,
Yeah.
as the game goes on, things become more natural between
Yeah.
the two. But
Yeah.
like you
No,
said,
I
it starts with
agree.
the practice.
Yeah, and I agree. And Rome up to this point has really been the key target. He was leading the Bears in receptions, and granted, they're in teams. In his defense, teams are starting to game plan because he was the go-to guy early in the year, and sometimes that's going to happen when you're the weapon that Caleb has been going to. Teams are going to identify that, and they're going to say, hey, they're really Rome's been their guy. Let's try to shut down Rome and gear our coverage towards Rome. But now it's starting to be distributed. You saw Loveland step up and make some plays, and obviously DJ Moore I've always liked. I think he's
Yeah.
tough as nails as a player, and they've got plenty of guys to distribute it around. And when their numbers called, they all need to make plays, and once that happens, it's going to be beautiful to see.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And while we're in here, I want to show some love to the chat. Shout out to Rome. Shout out to Romo. He's a huge Roma Dunze fan. He looks for a bounce back game for Rome this Sunday. Doug G, shout out to you, sir. Shout out to my man Trax. Shout out to everybody watching wherever you're watching from. Please like and subscribe. Shout out to Ant Mass. Shout out to Ron Ronowski. Shout out to you. Long time, buddy. But yeah, man. You listen. Spot on. And this Sunday versus the Giants. I know what I mentioned what I like to see, but what do you expect the Bears to do versus this Giant team?
Well, they got to slow down their edge rushers. Obviously, Thibodeau and company, they can be disruptive, and not that they can't be attacked, but they're pretty aggressive up front.
Hmm.
Is what they do. They've got some good athletes up front on their D line that the Bears are going to have to slow down. They're going to have to neutralize. Run some screens, run some draws, slow them down. But they've given up big plays too. So I think
Right.
it's all on the table for the Bears. Continue to wear them out, run the football. The play action pass, I think Caleb is really taken off in that aspect. I really like his mesh points, how he's selling the fakes, and guys have been pretty wide open on the play actions, and that area of his game continues to grow because that's one of the things Ben Johnson said when he arrived at the Bears. He wanted Caleb to be under center more, to run play action because Detroit ran the most play action of any team
Yeah.
last year in the NFL, and it was a big part of their offense. And you can get a lot of explosive plays off of the play action. And I think with the way they're running the football and how Caleb is selling it, the Giants will be vulnerable in that area. And they're another aggressive defense that kind of over pursues, and it could lead to a lot of explosive plays if the Bears are able to exploit more play action pass that Caleb, I think, is really starting to really take off in that area with what he's been able to do in the recent weeks. So I look for big things. Last week should have been nothing but a confidence booster for the offense.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, speaking of Caleb, he does look very he looks very comfortable on the center now. And like you said, the way he's even added some swag to the play action fake. I don't know if
Yeah.
you noticed that,
Yeah.
but he's added a lot of swag to the play action fake, and like you said, it's working. But when it comes to the inaccuracies, when you look at tape on Caleb and you look at these games, what is the major lead to his inaccuracies on some plays? Now, for me, I think more than anything that he's kind of feeling the rush too often. I don't think he's giving himself time enough to plant and deliver the football.
Yeah.
How you feel about that, Jim?
Yeah, I think well early he was under some pressure versus Cincinnati where I thought he was bailing out of the pocket a little too early. You got to make what we call short step no step throws. In even though a rusher is barreling down on you, you still just put your front foot in the ground and you're able to deliver an accurate pass. A lot of the times when I see him inaccurate, he like in certain games he's been high with the football,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, mechanic wise, normally when you're high with the football and the ball sails on you, and your elbow mechanically, when you throw, your elbow should be just above your right shoulder. And when your elbow dips below your right shoulder, the ball's going to sail high. It's going to automatically go high. And sometimes Caleb gets too loosey goosey because he's really good. He's got good arm. He's able to manipulate his arm where he can throw on a lot of different platforms, which is good. But you still need to be able, when you can set your feet and make an accurate pass, go back to your normal mechanics where you keep that elbow just above your shoulder and your feet are in balance, and you'll be an accurate passer. If you're in balance when you throw and mechanically you have that right shoulder just above, or your right elbow just above your right shoulder, you're going to be accurate in how you throw the football. Sometimes he's too loose with
Mm-hmm.
his arm and it has to, again, play with structure. That's what I've been preaching with him, is to play more with more structure in the pocket, kind of like what you've just explained, where you don't have to bail. Just sit in there, step, wheel, and throw, and make it the accurate throw with the proper mechanics. And sometimes he relies on being the athlete that he is and just has to get back to his mechanics, in my opinion. He's too good of an athlete not to. And
Yeah.
the more he does it, the better he's going to get. And I know Ben Johnson's harping on him about it. And so just eliminate some of those bad habits that I think over time he will. He will.
Yeah, and I think one of the toughest things to being a quarterback is to have to deliver that throw when you know that guy's coming
Did I
to.
lose you?
No, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Jim? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I got you. I lost you
Okay.
for a second.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but like I said, one of the toughest, like I was saying, one of the toughest things of being a quarterback is sitting in that pocket and having to deliver that throw when you have a guy coming with his hair on fire, coming to knock the numbers off your jersey.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of these when Caleb sees a free rusher,
Hmm.
he just gets rid of the football anywhere he can,
Hmm.
and that's what led to intentional grounding penalties against Baltimore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to be up in you have to be able to sit up in that pocket and sometimes take a hit. And I think that's very difficult. And he did mention in one of the press conferences I heard that he didn't want to take a lot of he didn't want to repeat of last year where he took a lot of sacks. So he's trying to find ways to get rid of the football.
Yeah, and well, part of it is continuing to process everything, get through your reads as quickly as possible. Sometimes I still think he's a little slow in doing that, and Ben Johnson has pointed that out. Like, the week prior when he got intercepted to Rome on the in cut, the coach called him out in the post game and said, "Yeah, the ball should have went to the check down Monangai in the flat."
Hmm.
So the coach knows, and so he's got to continue to get quickly go through his reads. But like you said, you've got to trust your blockers up front. You've got to be oblivious to the pass rush. Yes, you have to feel it, you have to feel the pass rush, and you got to know when the right time is to bail. Like you said, if I know I can, you like I said, if I feel that pass rush and I know I've got time where I can deliver this in cut, you should sit in the pocket and deliver that in cut, and that's when you are going to take the hit, knowing that the timing's right. I have enough time to deliver the football and deliver an accurate pass, and I know I'm going to get hit, but as the game progresses those things are going to open up, and he'll continue to throw on time, and that eventually that pass rush will start to slow down. And in my opinion, and and that's how you frustrate a defense too. So for him, he can't go back to bad habits
Yeah,
and play backyard football where he's constantly bailing out of the pocket. He's got to sit in there. He's got to trust it. Yes, he's got to feel it. And you got to know when are the right times. All right, where I do have to bail. I can't sit in here and make this throw. I've got to abort and get out and now make a play. And
yeah.
those are just bad habits where, again, the more he plays,
Hmm.
he'll get better at, in my opinion. He's too good of a player not to. He really is. He's a very talented young quarterback. He really is.
Definitely. Shout out to my guy Illinois Jones. I see you in this, sir. Shout out to you, bear down. Like you say, he has to know when to bail.
Hmm.
Now, I think he's a little bit caught up in winning from the pocket. Because in his introductory press conference, he expressed the fact that he didn't want to be looked at as a runner.
Hmm.
Now, to me, he's put up enough, a big enough resume to show that he can play and win from the pocket. Sometimes you just have to get up out of there, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You just have to get out of there. Not saying that you have to run for 60 yards. Get 5 yards and slide or get out of bounds or whatever you do, but you cannot sit up there just go, because you're not going to be able to beat everybody. He's real slick in the pocket. He knows how to manipulate the pocket very well. He climbs the ladder very well. But sometimes, man, these guys are hell of athletes, man. You're not going to be able to beat them like that all the time.
Yeah.
So, I think he just needs to not get so caught up in winning from the pocket, but just do what you have to do to get the job done. Similar to a guy like a Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it- the problem for Caleb, and part of it is everybody forgets when he was at USC with Lincoln Riley or even at Oklahoma. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that is an air raid offense, and they
Yeah.
throw to open areas, is what they do. And so receivers just whenever the open area is, they kind of sit down, and it's kind of like you don't anticipate things. You're waiting for it to happen, and then you see it, and then you deliver the football. Now in the pros, you have to anticipate throws. You have to know coverages where say, hey, I trust that my in cut is going to come open at 16 yards because I know I got, say it's a cover three, and I know
Mhm.
I got that corner in a deep third, and I've got that middle safety in a deep third, and I know the middle backer is taking my hook route and covered the tight end over the ball, and I see that the weak side backer is now taking the flat responsibility, curl flat responsibility he has. And if you know coverage and you read coverage properly,
Yeah.
just by seeing the defenders and where they are and knowing the coverage. I know cover three, and when I drop and I see all those players go to the areas that they
Hmm.
go to, I can already anticipate my in cut is going to be wide open because all those defenders are occupying the areas that they need to occupy. And I know right away, just by dropping back, I see that Will Backer go to the flat. I see the Mike Backer now jumping that hook route by by the
Mm-hmm.
tight end, I know my in cut is going to be wide open, and I have to anticipate that I need to, when I get out back on my drop, anticipate that throw and let it go. And you
Yeah.
could throw it before the receiver is even coming out of his break, where the ball will be out of his hand, and he'll play even faster from the pocket within structure. And then, of course, if I know on that in cut, say the when I drop back and I feel that left tackle collapsing on me, hey man, I'm not going to have time to throw that in cut. I do need to bail on this play. And so again, it's the feel, it's the risk reward. There's a lot going on
Mm-hmm.
in your head that you have to decipher where you're making these split second decisions, but the more you do it over time, it becomes real easy. It really does,
Yeah.
where you just feel it and you know, hey, man, it's time to bail. Nope, I know I can sit in here. I see the defenders. I'm going to let it rip. I can make that short step, no step throw because he's got a big arm to deliver that without a big wind up or anything because
Right.
he's got a real strong arm, man. That's another
Yes,
thing. His
indeed.
arm is live, man. I love his arm.
Yes, indeed. And the fact that you bringing up that each of these coverages have principle,
Yeah,
and that's where you learn how where to deliver the football based off the principles of the defense. And
yeah,
I think because back in the day, I think they taught when you're reading progressions, you go first read 1, 2, 3, 4, but now it's more of a I think the way I heard Kurt Warner explain is more of a thing of just like you said, you basing where you go with the football based off the principles of the defense that's being played.
yeah. Well, like that X in play that that is a staple play in offense. It's just X in Z post.
Okay.
Tight end comes over, basically has a drag over the ball. The running back will be into the flat release. Your X is on a 16-yard in cut, and your Z is on a Z post. So if you're seeing basic coverages like cover three or cover two or
Hmm.
uh quarters or anything like that, you already know you have to know where the weaknesses are. Like say when I just said a quarters coverage for the anybody who's watching right now, quarters coverage means a corner has a quarter of the
Hmm.
field. So the
Hmm.
quarter, so basically the quarter of the field from the sideline to the hash mark, and then the safety has the second quarter of the field, and the front side safety has that quarter of the field, and then the front side corner would have the quarter of the field to that side, meaning sideline to hash mark on that side. I already know when I drop back, the weakness of quarter coverage is the flat.
Yeah.
So if I call that X N Z post in my pre-snap read and I know it's quarters coverage, hey man, yeah, I'm gonna go through my reads real quick. I'll look my tight end over the ball. I'll check out my in cut, but I'm already thinking I'm going to the back in the flat because I
Yeah.
know that's the weakness of that coverage. So that's how he's got to be thinking. He goes,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking to hit that in cut, but I know 9 times out of 10 that ball's going to the flat because that's where it's going to be wide open.
Yeah, and that's another thing that could alleviate the sack issue as
Yeah,
well. Him allowing him to get the ball out a lot quicker.
yeah.
I want to go back to the defense for a second, Jim.
Hmm.
Now, amid the struggles that we're having, with this Dennis Allen defense and the guy not having enough guys to kind of like make this defense as effective as it should be, and not to look too far. But I expect some major changes. Number one in the secondary, and I do expect some changes, on the defensive front line. Come going into next season and coming into next season, because
Yeah,
I mean it's just guys. Guys are getting opportunity to prove themselves, but I just don't think we have enough on that back end, which used to be
yeah.
our strongest position group, but now it looks like the weakest.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think going into the season, you would have said their secondary is their strength. With Jalen Johnson, he's played at an all pro level. Kyler Gordon, with how he's played, and Brisker, when healthy, is very good. And Kevin Byard. I mean, that's a good secondary for a starter group. It really is solid. But Jalen Johnson hasn't been there. And I think we've seen I like Nashawn Wright, but I think we've seen him get beat deep too many times. It happened in the preseason against Kansas City. I mean,
Yeah.
Thornton, Kansas City, ran right by him, and he's given up some big plays. Look at T. Higgins, what T. Higgins
Whew.
did on some deep plays versus Cincinnati. Gordon hasn't been available, and so that's an issue. And part of it is when you start losing guys and you've got continuity issues, meaning other guys are playing that you're not used to, like Stevenson. He's been in and
Hmm.
out of the lineup. We've seen TJ Edwards, who's been a really good player, in and out of the lineup where Noah Sewell had to play, say, like even week one.
Yeah.
Think about Noah Sewell. That's a guy who hasn't played a lot, and he gets beat on a wheel route by Aaron
Yeah.
Jones of the Minnesota Vikings just because he hasn't seen enough. So you've got guys in and out of the lineup where you don't have the continuity. They're not on the same page because they haven't played together. And that's where you start to have breakdowns. And you know, it's good that backups do get to play because the more they play, now their fellow teammates are comfortable. All right, I know how, Nashawn Wright's going to play this play, or, say, who's ever in for Kyler Gordon and how he's
Yeah.
going to play. Says, like Charlie Gardner Johnson. There's a case
Yeah.
in point right there. That guy arrived on Wednesday and he started Sunday,
Thrown right
and
into it.
yeah, so those guys don't know him. His 10 other teammates still do not know how he plays. Yeah, he's been around the league and he's a decorated player that comes with credentials, but his fellow teammates, they don't know his game yet. And they're going to get to know his game the more he continues to play, and they'll
Yeah.
get better.
Yeah. And speaking of that, now, I feel like a reason why CJ was thrown in is because he was very familiar with the defense that Dennis Allen and the way he likes
Yeah,
to run it. But when you spoke about how those other 10 guys felt about him, it's like there has to be a trust factor for things to go well on the defense, for everything to work, in cohesiveness. There has to be a level of trust from each guy. And like you said, guy coming in unfamiliar, you may know everything schematically, but when it comes down to the traits of the guys that he's playing with, you know it could get a little guys could get a little lost in translation trying to overdo their job because they don't
yeah.
completely trust the guy, you know what I'm saying, the new guy.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I go back, I just think of those good, really good Bears defenses under Lovie Smith. And, like when Urlacher and Briggs
Hmm.
and, guys like Anthony Adams and Tillman,
Yeah.
and those guys knew each other. They knew how they were going to play. They knew, Brian and Lance Briggs would be out there making calls at the last second, just because it was seamless for them, because they had been together for so many years in the same scheme, felt so comfortable that they could go off script and do certain things knowing each other, and like you said, sometimes it's communicated and sometimes it's the unspoken word where, again, where we've been in this situation before, and Lance Briggs could probably just look at Brian Urlacher in his eyes or vice versa
Yes.
and know what each other's going to do, and you just kind of give each other the nod and say, yeah, I know what you're thinking, let's do it, and
Yeah.
this defense hasn't gotten together, it hasn't done enough continuity wise in a new scheme, which is very, it's funny because I'm glad you brought this up, D Nice, because it reminded
Mhm.
me. I talked to Montez Sweat in the preseason, and he said he had never been in a defense like this. Like, there are a lot of calls in a Dennis Allen defense because they
Mhm.
present a lot of looks. Guys have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
He said, even him, for a veteran player, he said, I was thinking quite a bit. I was thinking more than I normally have because there's a lot of calls,
Mhm.
by an offensive set, how an offense lines up. Oh, this guy goes in motion. Now it changes to a different call. So you got to be on your toes and you got to be on the same page and communicate no different than offensive players do of what they're seeing on a defense. And the defensive players are making calls by what they see the offense is doing. And
Yeah.
Montez Sweat said there were a lot of calls. It surprised him. It's a complicated defense, and they just need more time together to gel and get to know one another.
Yeah, true indeed. And now we all understand how talented the NFL is. We know every team has a bunch of talented guys on it offense and defense. But what I've heard is that whenever you see a big play happen, especially a big run play, usually it's due to someone, trying to do more than their job,
Yeah.
on that defensive line. You're trying to compensate, for your teammate, which you may feel like he doesn't have the ability, or you don't completely trust him. So you're trying to do more than what the job entails for yourself. And that kind of allows huge holes, from a line perspective. And that allows these running backs to break for these big, huge runs. So trust is a huge factor, man. And I think I expressed that to the guys on one of the earlier shows that this defense is struggling because things are new. Like you said, it's more complex than they've ever.
Mhm.
It has to be more complex than the cover two.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Well, no, it is. And you're right. It's about fits and you're only as strong as your weakest link. And
Mhm.
everybody's has an assignment that they need to do. And it's got to be in unison. That's why it's a team, it's a unit that everybody's got to execute in unison to to execute a perfect play or how you want the defensive call to play out. Everybody has an assignment that they're accountable for,
Mhm.
and you got to trust your teammate that they're going to do their job, you're going to do your job, and if all 11 do it the way it's supposed to be executed, you're going to have success. At the end of the day, like I go back to that Dallas game because everybody knows Matt Eberflus's defense. It's a Tampa 2
Mhm.
style, but they play a lot of zone. Look at the
Yeah.
troubles Dallas Cowboys have had this year. They play 90% zone. They have switched defensive play callers 3 straight years, right? Dan Quinn was there, who played a lot of man defense. Then he gets the
Mhm.
head coaching job of the Washington Commanders. And man defense is really what Stephon Diggs and Duron
Yeah.
Bland and those secondary players are geared for. Then they bring in Mike Zimmer once Dan Quinn leaves to become the head coach of the Commanders. Mike Zimmer believes in a lot of quarters coverage.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that really doesn't play to the strength of Dallas. And they struggled last year. And now they have Matt Eberflus, who believes in a lot of Tampa 2, a lot of zone. And those guys are really struggling. Their defense has
Yeah.
been porous all year because sometimes the scheme doesn't fit the players' skill sets, and
There you
you know
go.
and and then everybody starts trying to do more than what they should. And that's really what happened, say, in the Bears game against Dallas. I
Yeah.
saw a lot of players out of position trying to make up for other players, lack of execution, and it just looked horrible. And the Bears
Yeah.
lit them up, is what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And you described that thing to a T. Hey,
Mhm.
shout out to everyone watching us tonight. Shout out to everybody rocking with us in the chat, wherever you watching us from, X, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you watching from. We truly appreciate you. I am D Nice here with the legendary Jim Miller, and we're talking Bears football. We talked about the move that happened earlier today with the Bears acquiring Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And shout out to the chat, Matthew Bear. I see your comment. The Bears absolutely were listed as one of the more aggressive teams, in this trade deadline period. But we didn't have a whole lot of motion with it, up until we made the move with Cleveland for this young pass rusher. So we're closing, Jim.
Mhm.
The future, from this point of the schedule to the end of the season, what is your outlook on what we do as a team, for the remainder of the year?
Yeah. I think like they can control their destiny. The division's up for grabs, is what I would say. They've
Hmm.
got all these division games late in the year here where they can control it. Like I said, for Carolina to go in and just beat Green Bay and for Minnesota to go in and beat Detroit, it just tells you it's up for grabs. And the Bears offense needs to be hitting on all cylinders because I don't think the defense has the horses of what they need to do. So it needs to be an offensive led team. And I
Yeah.
think they're capable of doing it. I think with
Agreed.
the talent of Caleb, with the way they're running the ball, with the weapons that they have on offense, they should be able to do that. And if they score in the high 20s, they've got a great shot. They really
Agreed.
do. Now, how far they could potentially, if they're able to do that and put themselves in the playoffs, I don't know how far that they go because their defense is not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Typically, when you look at teams that make the NFC Championship game or the AFC Championship game, all four of those championship teams normally lead the league in sacks, and the Bears
Mm,
can't generate that. Granted, they tried to make the move to Tryon to increase
yeah.
that total, but they're still not good enough pass rush wise, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they
Go
could
ahead.
make the playoffs. They have that opportunity, D Nice.
Yeah.
They can. It's up to
I
them.
absolutely, I absolutely agree. And we're in such a situation where we can flip the standings, because we've had some decent games that we played early on, but now we're coming into, a little heavier part of the season. But the fortunate part about that is that the other guys in our division are headed toward that same fate as well. Now, Detroit just looks like, they just look like the strongest thing moving in this division, but and based off of schedule and what they have going on, it's going to be hard to knock them off out of first place. But I think we can get into that second spot because Green Bay, they had a big loss this weekend. Not only the game, but they lost Tucker Craft, which is probably tight end one in this NFL. This season before he went down. And that's a huge loss for Jordan Love and company. And we have an opportunity to play the Giants. We play the Vikings again, and we also play the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those are three games. Now, we understand that the Vikings and Steelers have an excellent defense, but the Steelers are more hit and miss, and I
Yeah.
think the Vikings have a lot of offensive woes. So these we're in a situation like we were some weeks before where we can really take advantage of this thing. And as the weeks go on and we continue to do what we're supposed to do, you never know what happens. Now, as
Right.
far as the playoffs and Super Bowl aspirations, listen, if we get in, all we can ask for is a chance, and I'm gonna roll with them till we can't roll no more. But we have to be able to generate more of a pass rush without blitzing, and hey, this acquisition could do some things. Then again, it could make us we can continue to what we already are. You know what I'm saying? To what we already are. And that won't, like you said, to get to that NFC championship game, that's not gonna cut the cake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just look at this weekend. I mean, Flacco basically threw for 5 bills. I mean, he threw for.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the best.
Yeah.
The guy's 40 years old, D Nice, and he's had his best game in the NFL for his 20-year career.
And this is a
So
Super Bowl MVP we talking about now.
yeah. So I mean, you throw for 500, it just tells you where the pass rush is. It's got to be better from the Bears' standpoint for them to have a chance to go deep into the playoffs. But they position themselves nicely. I like where they're at currently as a team, and I really like for this offense for the rest of the way out. Like even against Pittsburgh, whose defense has been spotty up until this past weekend, Green Bay's defense is not as good as what people think. You can run on Green Bay, and Carolina proved
Agreed.
that this weekend. And
Agreed.
so the Bears have everything that they need offensively to get past these games to put themselves in the postseason to make up for anything lacking on defense. It's really up to them. But their defense overall is not built well enough yet to go deep into the playoffs to threaten, say, to make it to a championship or to a Super Bowl. They're not. They don't have the horses yet.
Agreed. And listen, things on defense may not be fixable, just to be honest. This season anyway.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
It's going to be an offseason of roster moves. I agree.
Mhm. Yeah, and listen, offensively, we have some things that we can be fixed, but it's up to the leaders of this football team on the offensive end. We spoke last week, me and the guy spoke last week about the leadership on this team. Now, we understand who the leaders are on the defensive side of the ball. but we also feel like we know who should be the leader of the offense.
Yeah.
But I think it takes more. I think it has to be someone else more than Caleb Williams. He should be the head of it, but it has to be another guy that can kind of help him steer this thing with him being such a young QB.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I just feel like with the little things that we have going on with this offense, with the guys bickering, the penalties, which I think penalties we did a little better than we have been doing
Yeah.
this week versus Cincinnati. I think we had 7 for maybe 46 yards. And that's a heck of a lot better than we was dealing with and what we have been dealing with, the last couple of games because we were in the double digits and it got kind of terrible. We was in 80 and 100-yard territory and penalty yards, man. It's
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous. But who's the other leader on this offense, Jim?
Well, I mean, you'd like to think Joe Tooney
Okay.
because that guy's experienced championship football. He
Yeah.
knows what it's supposed to look like, in my opinion. And I think he can help Caleb too, just in what Patrick Mahomes does, and I think he can be a very uh, crucial player in Caleb's development also. And I certainly think DJ Moore, is a leader. I think the toughness that he plays. I know he's not a to me, he seems like more of an action guy. He doesn't seem like a talk guy. He's kind of a man of action, but just he leads by example, just like his effort to get the ball in the end zone against Cincinnati. He's kind of a
Mhm.
doer. He's not a talker.
Yeah.
But I think up to this point, Ben Johnson has been that voice because he's kind of been calling out the offense,
Yeah.
asking for guys to step up. And he kind of insinuated in the post game that, hey, we need more leaders on this team to be accountable and hold their brethren accountable when things aren't the way they need to be. You know, guys on defense, yeah, Grady Jarrett, I think Kevin Byard, TJ Edwards, I think those guys are all leaders in my opinion. But even those guys know they're not good enough up front. And I love Grady Jarrett. I think he's
Hmm.
a savvy veteran, but he's an 11-year player. He's on the
Yeah.
downside of his career. And
Hmm.
he's a great leader. He's a great example. He says all the right things, and he's going to get the younger players to where they need to be. But those younger players aren't where they need to be. When you look
Yeah.
at Dexter and some of the young defensive linemen, granted, it's a new scheme for them, and I get their struggles, but to me, they're not dominators. They're
Yeah.
just not. Grady Jarrett, when he was in Atlanta, that dude was a
Yeah.
dominator. He's a
Yeah.
dominator. Now he's a contributor, is where he's at in his
For
career.
sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of the young guys on the defense, it's just not enough consistency. We
Yeah.
see splashes and we see, potential that say, hey, if he takes it up another level, he could be this, that, or third, but it's just not consistent enough, to where,
Yeah.
they can garner respect from the rest of the league, you
Yeah.
know. Um but yeah, man, this is gonna be interesting to see how this thing plays out. Jim, I want to thank you for hanging out with us tonight. I ain't gonna keep. I listen. I have a lot more football to talk about, and I guess we'll make it up on another time. But I appreciate you rocking with us tonight, man. Appreciate you coming in and chatting with us, man.
You
And
bet. You
listen, I'm
bet, D
looking.
Nice. Hey, man, it's good being with you, and let's do it
Mhm.
again.
Indeed, indeed. Shout out to everyone that's watched us tonight, that's rocked with us tonight from the chat to wherever you're watching us from. Please like and subscribe. This is Bears content, for Bears fans, from Bears fan, and a former Bears quarterback, by the way. So y'all tap in and roll with us. Before we get out of here, I'd like to say a very happy birthday to Mr. Devin Hester, Chicago Bears legend, Hall of Fame returner. Happy birthday to you, sir. But you have anything you want to say before you get up out of here?
Hey, man, it's halfway through the season. It's time to make this push. You got to play your best football after Thanksgiving. And that's where the Bears, that's what they need to strive to do. Those are going to be meaningful games where they should be hitting on high cylinders. So the best is yet to come, hopefully.
Yes, indeed. We will be tested, but the biggest tests are given to the strongest soldiers. And I think we built for it. Caleb say this offense is built for it, and we'll see this weekend versus the New York Giants. Shout out to everyone. Be safe out there. Peace up and bear down.